Shalom from Israel, I'm Ariel Ben Avram. This week we read Parashat Toldot. This portion of the week narrates several episodes. We'll try to concentrate in the ones that we consider that are more transcendent. Everything is transcendent in the Torah, every passage, every single word. However, there are some episodes, some situations, some messages that we have to pay particular attention. So the idea is to understand how these messages resound in our consciousness, how we relate to them. I mean, that's the whole purpose of the Torah, actually, that we understand it, this word of God, this message of God, this instruction. Actually, Torah in Hebrew means instruction, means to us. What's the whole point? It's just something that is outside of us, or it's something that is really part of our consciousness, which is. We have to understand the Hebrew scriptures. Every Jew has to understand that every message of the Hebrew scriptures has something to do with his consciousness. It's like the Hebrew scriptures define the Jewish identity. But this is about who we are. We have to basically act in consequence, accordingly. Like, basically to be aware of who we are. And we know who we are with the Torah. It's very essential. So anyway, the first thing that this portion tells us is about the generations of Isaac, the descendants of Isaac, the son of Abraham. And then immediately after that narrates the pregnancy, the difficult pregnancy of Rebecca. So she was having problems, pains during her pregnancy, so she decided to inquire of God, asking God what's going on with me, basically. And Hashem said to her, that's chapter 25, verse 23. And Hashem said to her, 2 nations are in your womb, 2 regimes from your insides shall be separated. The might shall pass from one regime to the other, and the elder shall serve the younger. Okay. Our sages say that we're not talking about 2 nations in the way we understand it, literally, like 2 peoples, which actually that's in the material manifestation of the prophecy, that's what it is. There are 2 peoples. Israel is one people, Edom, meaning Esau, is another nation, as Ishmael is another nation, and so on. But our sages, what they're trying to tell us is like beyond the definition of nation, particularly the Gur Aryeh is one of most important sages. He says that the 2 nations are indeed the 2 polarities, so to speak, the 2 forces that comprise the universe. And by universe, we're talking about all existence. So we're not talking about just Esau and Jacob. We're talking about 2 major forces that comprise the universe. Now, this is a major conception to grasp. It's not easy to grasp this. It's beyond our reach. It's beyond our understanding. We still have working our scientists. They're trying to find out what are the forces that, or the force that hold this universe, that sustains this universe. They know that there's something that sustains everything, but they don't know what that is. So they elaborate theories and theories and theories every generation or every time or every year, every decade. Try to find out what this force is. The only thing that our scientists know is that it's something that at this moment is passing through us. So it's coming from one side, going to the other, but we don't know what that is. And it's passing constantly. So it's not that it wasn't before here. It always has been. That's one of the issues. It's like, what was before this force that is passing through us? What was before this force? Were we here alone without that force passing through us, or it has been all the time? That we don't know. So scientists try to find out based on the atom, how the atom behaves as a microcosm of the universe. So it's like, it's an atom behaving in a particular way, therefore the universe has to be the same way. It's a theory though. It doesn't necessarily have to be that way. But that's why they think. They believe. They want to propose as a reason for this force to exist. So, we can define it, we said before, as polarities. We can call it positive, negative. We don't know really what those are. But let's assume, let's presume that some kind of positive and negative energy. Again, we mentioned the scientific data that we said before about force, I'm sorry. One force. I'm not talking about two forces. I'm talking about one force, which is full, is impregnated with kind of other, we'll call it forces, but other ways that this main force manifests. Those are other things that we're not going to, we're not scientists, we're not going to speculate on that. So the good news is that if our scientists say that it's one force, then there's some kind of unity. We can understand that everything is part of a oneness. This force is sustaining, is passing through life, is containing existence, is containing the universe as one. That's very important to note. So when the Torah is saying there are two nations, and our mystic sages say we're talking about two forces, we are not necessarily understanding this in a scientific way, like positive and negative or anything like that. They say like two kind of consciousness says. And then these two forces are later defined. One as Yaakov and another as Esau. So that the peculiar qualities, that's what we call it consciousnesses. This is one consciousness that projects itself in a particular way, and there's another consciousness that projects itself in a particular way. They behave differently. So we're not talking here necessarily about positive and negative or a major physical forces. We're talking about approaches to life. It's like Jacob Israel is one approach, and Esau Adam is another approach. And we will see this here. The Torah will explain us what these forces are, who these two nations are, and what is the function of each one, and which is the one that is going to prevail over the other. So this portion of the Torah is extremely important because it will set some kind of the tone, so to speak, the sound, the note, the frequency of what we're going to understand for the rest of the book. These two conceptions are being generally defined before. Cain and Abel. And we also mentioned that the children of Noah, Japheth, Shem, and Ham, they represent some kind of similar consciousness that we were saying before, like opposite consciousness. It's like Ham represents one particular consciousness, Shem represents a different one. So we have seen this pattern from before. So this is nothing new actually. And actually from even before Cain and Abel, we saw it with the snake and Eve and all this interaction of consciousnesses. So we don't have to call them forces of nations, consciousnesses, approaches to knowledge, to life, to existence. So, two regimes from your innards, your inside, shall be separated. So there's a dictum from God to say that they will be separated. But the older shall serve the younger. So, one of the things that are important to remark about this statement of God to Rebecca, and we mentioned that in our blog. We said in the blog that this is not just a statement from God, it's a commandment. So one thing is a statement, and the other thing is like, this is the way it would be. It's commanded to be that way. And we said that it's a commandment because later, when Isaac is going to give the blessings to the children, and Rebecca comes and tells her son Jacob, you're going to be the one who's going to be blessed. What she's saying basically is, there's a commandment of God that God gave me, that the things are going to be in a particular way. You're going to be the recipient of the blessings because you are going to be the one who is going to prevail over your brother. It's a decision of God, it's not her decision. So this is very fundamental to understand. It's not about cheating Isaac or deceiving the wife and the father or anything like that because he was blind, they will take advantage of him. There's nothing like that here. It's a commandment. It had to be done in a particular way, it had to be fulfilled in a particular way. And that's exactly what happened. Besides, we will see later that Esau sold his birthright to Jacob, so he had nothing to complain. The only compliance is like Isaac said to Esau, come, I'm going to bless you. But the story becomes complicated because Isaac was blind. And he didn't know the commandment that God gave to his wife. Our oral tradition tells us that Rebecca kept this for herself. This statement, two nations are in your womb, two regimes from your innards shall be separated, the might shall pass from one regime to the other, and the elder shall say the younger. He never shared this with anybody, except with her son. Her son in this case is Jacob. That's the story. Okay. So it's like, of course, there are moral issues here. It's like, no, the fact of the matter is that the Torah said that the man was cheated. The man was cheated and God didn't want this. Most likely the story would have turned differently. And Isaac would have found out, then besides, the blessing is the blessing of God, it's not the blessing of Isaac. Is that clear here? So if the blessing is from God, God knows who God blesses. So there's no cheating here. So be aware of that. Because some people have issues with this. So they believe that there was some kind of foreplay in the whole situation. It wasn't. From the very beginning. That's what we are emphasizing on this verse. This is a commandment. This is not just a statement or an opinion of God. This is the way it shall be done. It will be done this way. So Rebecca was in a particular moment of the situation. I mean, when Rebecca hears that the father is going to bless the wrong son, she had to do something about that. She's responsible for a commandment. She was a righteous woman. She was acting according to what she heard from God to do, or to understand. One lesson that we learned when we were studying the Hasidic tradition and the Torah in general a few years ago, it's a very important lesson, is that prophecy exists not as a statement or a declaration or proclamation, but as something that has to be fulfilled. So we have to, it's our responsibility to make the prophecies be fulfilled. Not just to sit and wait. It doesn't happen that way. We have to make the prophecies happen. We have several episodes in the story, in the Jewish history, The case of King David was one of the typical cases. It was basically, he agreed to his wife Bathsheba that Solomon was going to be his heir, the next king. Then when he was going to die, King David, there was a struggle to see who was going to be the next heir. And then the prophet Nathan came, and Bathsheba came they both came to King David and said, you have to fulfill the prophecy. But he was dying. King David was dying. It's like, they had to make that happen. It was not just about sitting and, see what's going to happen. Say, okay, God said that it's going to be King Solomon. Sure. So what's going on? Somebody else is going to take his place. It's like, is this the prophecy? No, it isn't. We have to do something about that. Not just to sit and wait. The same thing happened with Rebecca and Isaac. She knew that her husband was blind. Didn't know who really he was going to bless. The kind of person that he was. Then he had to do something about it. She had to do something about that. She did. And later we see that Jacob was concerned about this. It's like, I was raised to be a man of integrity. How I'm going to deceive my father. Like, I cannot do that. It would be a curse to me. And then Rebecca said, if it's going to be a curse, may the curse be on me. It's here. we read that later. But anyway, there's things that we have to emphasize about the differences between the two brothers so we can understand who is going to prevail, or who is destined by the divine will to prevail. So this is interesting. The lads, or the young ones, grew up, and Esau became one who knows trapping, a man of the field. But Jacob was a wholesome man, abiding in tents. Isaac loved Esau, for deer was in his mouth. In other words, the prey of his hunting. And Rebekah loved Jacob. So the father loved the elder and the mother loved the younger. So it was some kind of dysfunctionality here. You see, a home in which the father loves the elder and the mother loves the younger is like, they're supposed to love each other the same way, that kind of thing. Well, in the context of two different approaches to reality, to life, we have to understand that there are differences, there are separations, as God mentioned in the blessings, shall be separated. Now, how we understand separated? We take it from the approach of good and evil. Jacob represents the good, and Esau represents the evil, which actually that's what happened later in the story. Esau became evil, and Jacob became the good one. The one that represents and manifests goodness. So there is a separation. What separation means? It's no gray here. It's black and white. It's either black and white. We don't deal here with middle separation. We have to approach evil in the same way that God is telling us this is separate. We have to take that into consideration. It's something deeper, because nowadays in world politics, you know, everybody looks for the gray, tolerance, that kind of thing, or cultural diversity. If you see some kind of culture who loves and proclaims and justifies and legalizes pedophilia, sex with children, with minors, other people call it cultural diversity. Stoning people who drink publicly or they behave sexually in a different way. It's cause for the death penalty. So people, basically the rest of the world is like, okay, that's the way we live them. It's cultural diversity, that's the way they are. Now, the point is like, is that ethically and morally acceptable to have that kind of position? Or female circumcision, for instance. The United Nations don't do anything about that. The Permanent Committee on Human Rights of the United Nations, they do nothing regardless pedophilia, regardless stoning of people who drink alcohol or behave sexually in an improper way according to their standards. They call it cultural diversity. So we ourselves, we don't belong to those cultures. It's like, are we going to be tolerant to that? I mean, accepting these kind of things as cultural diversity? I mean, it's not our moral and ethical imperative to make life and the goodness of life prevail? And mutual understanding and those kind of things. So it's like basically human rights become a fake. That's exactly what it is. Or we have radical Islam nations, you know, practice radical Islam, you know, being part of the Security Council of the United Nations, excuse me. or be part of the human rights or the labor unions or that kind of thing. I mean, Workers International Organization is that these people don't have the same principles, the same values as the rest of the people. Why do they belong to the rest of the people? In the name of tolerance? These are complex issues, we cannot discuss just in one comment, but you get the idea of what we're trying to communicate here. We have to really have a radical approach against evil in any of its ways. There's no exceptions here. That's exactly what the separation is about. Meaning that whatever negative tendencies we have in consciousness, we all have, we're not perfect. The negative tendencies, negative conceptions, negative thoughts, negative emotions, negative instincts. The idea is that that tendency has to serve a greater purpose. What is that greater purpose? Goodness. That's the younger purpose. So the older is gonna serve the younger. That's the idea. That's the divine plan. Okay. So then we have the episode when the children are born, there's a difference between one and the other. And then immediately after that, in order to establish the difference between one and the other, Esau sold his birthright. Now, what is the birthright? You have to make it. This is an important definition. Firstborn. Now, in the context of the Torah and the historical context that was before the giving of the Torah, the firstborn represent the extension, the first extension of the father. By extension, we're not talking about only another life, but also the legacy, the purpose. Now, all the children should serve that purpose. But the first one is the reference, symbolizes the reference of what that legacy and purpose are. So, in the context of the story, it also represents priesthood. What is priesthood? Our connection with God. Our awareness of our permanent connection with God. That's the priesthood. That's the birthright. So in general terms, every human being is his own priest. Because he has his own individual connection with God. So he's responsible for this priesthood, this birthright. So we have to be aware every day, every moment that we are connected. We're an extension of God. We are the bearers of his legacy, his values, his will. That's the priesthood. The moment that we reject the priesthood, that we reject the birthright, and say, I don't believe in anything of this, basically. That's the attitude of Esau. We mentioned in the blog that he committed 5 major crimes the day he sold his birthright to Jacob. He raped a betrothed, a woman who was going to get married, promised in marriage to somebody else, obviously. He committed murder. He killed King Nimrod in order to steal his garments. This is oral tradition, this is Midrash. He denied the existence of God. He denied the belief, the major belief in Judaism, of the resurrection of the dead. and he despised the birthright. It's a sin, also, it's a crime. It's denying our connection with God. Nothing more and nothing less. So it's like basically by denying, rejecting the priesthood, he rejected everything else. No ethical and moral, so he can rape every woman that he finds no matter what. Doesn't believe in anything anymore. It's completely out of control, basically. Lost. So, that's one of the... So this guy came, Esau came after committing all these crimes according to the tradition, came starving, like really was like drained. He lost all his energy doing all this, committing all these crimes. So he came to his brother and he said, feed me. You are making some meal there, like red pottage. Just give me some of it. That's why it was called Edom later. Edom means red in Hebrew. Okay, so the Edomites and descendants of Esau. So Jacob said, if you have done all these things, because people told him, like your brother did this and that. People knew what was going on, except his father. His father basically was isolated. He didn't hear anything of what was going on. The oral tradition also say that Abraham died that day. God took his soul. He said, I don't want Abraham to see that one of his grandsons is a criminal, said God. So before Abraham heard the news from the neighbors of what his grandchild has done, God took his soul. It's like, I'm going to spare you from the shame of seeing that one of your descendants is a criminal. So Jacob, seeing that his brother Esau rejected all the legacy of the family, basically. It's like, if you don't want this, sell it to me. I give you the red lentils, the red pottage, say, what do I need this for? I'm dying, I'm dead, basically. That's what his answer is. So, then we see that these negative tendencies in consciousness basically are without any control or any ethical or moral principle. It's like when we transgress anything, what people call sin, is when we don't believe that there's anything good about it. We don't care. The goodness that is there, the sanctity of it doesn't exist. Therefore, that's why we proceed in a particular way, in a negative way, because we don't see anything goodness in it. Even if it's there, we don't see it. So it's like we're not trying to make a moral, ethical statement about, evil behavior or violence or, murder, rape, and that kind of thing. Of course, there is a moral judgment, absolutely, yes. We want to go a little beyond that. Not overlooking the negative aspects of sin, no. It's like, what is behind that? What is the whole point? Based on what we transgress. So he raped because he has lost. Lost of what? Lost of something that he thought he lacked. Esau. That's why he raped. It's like by raping, he thought that he was going to get something that he thought he lacked. Possession, power, control. Killing someone in order to steal a garment. What is the whole point? What is that Esau lacked that he wanted to kill someone to steal his garment? Power. The garment of Nimrod, according to the Midrash, made him powerful. It was about power. And denying the existence of God is basically, I'm my own God. That's what basically the idea behind being an agnostic or an atheist in this case. It's like, I'm my own God. Why did there's any other God besides me? And then my God against other people's gods. Then the resurrection of the dead is basically the basic belief that we, after we die, we can be reborn by the power of God. And then the last one, which is probably the source, the root of the other ones, is the birthright, our connection with God. That we have no connection with God. Why would I care? Why should I care if there's no God? So those are the capital sins, the capital transgressions. To have to think about that. Why do we do that? Why do we lust? Why do we covet? Why do we envy? And so on. So this is basically the qualities of Esau. The nations. They don't care. They just care for what they want, what they desire, at the expense of others. Actually, at the expense of their own lives. Because some people get into addictions that are destructive. Obsessions, attachments, that physically destroy people. So they basically are having these addictions and this kind of behavioral negative patterns of behavior at the expense of their own life. And then they do that also at the expense of others. Then it's not enough taking from themselves, out of themselves. They have to take out something from others. Out of a pure, illusory sense of feeling, belief, of lack. Now the idea is that from where we get the feeling or the belief that we lack something. I mean, truly, what do we need? I mean, beyond the need, what is that we want or desire? Beyond what is purely a basic need. Roof, shelter, food, care, protection. Beyond that, what is it that we lack? As we said before, then we go back to the Garden of Eden. Everything was there, everything was provided. We lack nothing. We have to create an illusion of lack in order to bite from a tree. I mean, from a fruit. You have to first create the void, the idea that we lack something. Then once we believe in that we lack something, then we go for it. Regardless. We don't care. We just need to fulfill the lack. And then after we do it, we realize that there was something that we invented. It was nothing really basic, like real. But by then it's too late. Then we start living in illusion, fantasies, illusions of egos, false feelings of lack. I mean, feelings of beliefs of lack. We have to pay attention to that. In order to understand the consciousness of Esau, we have to pay attention to this that we have said. This is very, very essential. So then, the destiny, again, the commandment, God's will is that everything that we made, that drive force called ego, whatever negative, or whatever drive ego to get something beyond what is needed intrinsically, I mean basically needed, that force, that driving force, have to be at the service of goodness. So what is goodness? Loves, ways, and attributes. Those are, we always in the blog, one of the principles that we emphasize every day in every comment, every week, is that the opposite of egos, fantasies, and illusions are love's ways and attributes. In other words, when we love, everything is fulfilled, all the needs are covered. We have shelter, we have education, we have protection, we have food. That comes from the goodness of love. Now, egos, fantasies, and illusions is like, I want to take something more than that. Something not that I need, but something that I desire. But that tendency in consciousness have to serve a greater purpose, the goodness of love. That's the story between Israel and the nations. We are the good guys, basically. We have been. By decree, because of the Torah, it's actually in spite of us. We have to be good. That's our identity and that's our destiny. We are the bearers, the inheritors of the birthright. Israel is God's firstborn. It's that part of human consciousness that is aware of our permanent connection with God. That's Israel. That's the Temple of Jerusalem. That's Zion. That's why we are Zionists. We believe that this land and the Temple of Jerusalem is our connection with God. It is. So we believe in that. So we have to remove everything that is in between, that is against that. So we're talking about our connection with God. We're not talking about control, power, dominion, or anything like that. Dominion of what? So we're exactly against egos, fantasies, and illusions. All the battles of the nations are based on culture, ideology, values, ideas, beliefs that they want to impose on the others when they fight a war. We have seen that through history, throughout history. The conquest of primitive nations. We want to civilize them, we want to make them like us. Israel hasn't done that. Israel haven't had a war like that ever in our history, ever. All the wars are against us. The ones that want to impose their beliefs on us. Egypt, Babylon, Persia, Assyria, Greece, Rome, and the others. We don't have that. We don't even impose the Torah to anybody. We just want to live by example. So the next year we know we have to live by the values and by the Torah of the Jews. As it has been. Most nations believe in the Torah, have the Word of God as an ethical and moral principle, beyond if it's God's will or not. The Talmud says clearly, many times, that if we, Hasbe Shalom, God forbid, we don't have a Torah, if there was no Torah in the world, every human being has to act morally and ethically in everything, regardless if it's God or not. We have to be good. And we have to pursue goodness. That's the birthright. That's the legacy. That's who we are. That's what we are destined to be and to prevail. Okay, so there's more, of course, but let's leave it here, and I hope that the message has been conveyed. If there are questions or something that haven't been clear, please write us. godaslove@gmail.com. You can find it in the blog. And we keep the dialogue. Okay? So have an abundantly blessed week. Have a very blessed, inspired, restful, fulfilling, enhancing, elevating Shabbat. And Shabbat Shalom again, and see you next week.